Hey, it's Ryan with QLZ Home Edition today. It's a Friday night, chilling at home. I work mornings, so my Friday nights are usually never that wild and exciting, but it gives us the chance to interview bands. And Jimmy, you're in a band called Awaken I Am. You guys are in Melbourne, Australia. So it is Saturday morning for you. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me on, man. It's good to be here and good to have a chat.
I know. And I'm glad that you're able to do this. You've been dealing, I think, with the flu and you haven't been feeling as good, but you told me today you're not feeling worse. So we're glass half full tonight, tomorrow morning for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not feeling any better yet, but it could always be worse. So that's okay. We're still here for another day.
Exactly. So it's good to have you. It is winter there for you guys, which we were talking about all the crazy stuff halfway around the world right now. It is winter for you guys as summer is here. It's scorching for us. You guys also have a brand new song out right now. It's called Relic. It's your guys' first new music in 3 years. And as you and I emailed back and forth to do a feature called The Artist Spotlight, it's all about sharing music from new bands out there, up and coming bands out there, and bands we just want our listeners to know more about. So Monday morning for us at 8:30, and then for everybody in Australia, at least where you're at in Melbourne, it's gonna be 11:30 on Monday nights. And I always like to get some info about the song, whether you want to tell me kind of how this song started out or what inspired it, but always like to have something to share about the song with our listeners.
I'm so sorry, but my cat's just turned on the vacuum. Do you mind if I deal with it?
I heard the pause going on.
Oh, that's awesome. He did it the other night at about 3 a.m.
Okay.
And, it's actually very scary when it comes on, and it's like one of those automatic vacuums.
It's like
and there's nothing more scary than a vacuum coming on it. Yeah, exactly. There's nothing more scary than hearing a voice in a vacuum come on it in the middle of the night. I'm so sorry about that. Good to go.
You're good. So I just bought a brand. So my dog, we were chatting before we got rolling. We're like, dude, if the cat somehow makes an appearance in this, we're leaving in the interview. I told you I have a dog. He always chills next to me whenever I'm doing interviews. He hates the vacuum so much, and I just bought a new one, and I think it's louder than my old one, so he's not happy either about it.
Oh, it's I don't know what it is about this one. It's got those little it's got these little brushes that go around on the side, and he just loves to attack them. And I named that you can name the vacuum in the app. Yeah. I called it Henry. Just first thing that came to my head, and it suited. And Seb the cat, him and Henry, they don't get along.
Does he ride on top of it at all?
So anyway, every now and then the vacuum will pause if something's wrong and you have to move something out of the way or this or that, and he'll get on top of it while it's sitting still, and then as soon as I turn it back on, he has a good scare and a pretty high jump, and then goes back to attacking those little filter things. But he's always having fun, so that's okay.
I love that. So again, thanks to your cat for interrupting what we want to chat about in the song here. So again, Relic is the new single from you guys. The music video is out for it right now. I believe it's been out a couple of weeks, almost about a month here. So again, with us sharing the song on the station, I always like to get a little bit behind the song as well, whether you want to share what inspired it or whatever you feel like sharing about the
tune. It's sort of an interesting and not so interesting story with the song. Primarily, when I write music, it's the same as whether I've been writing for other bands or my own music. I write stories. It doesn't so much come from my own life. There's big parts of me, in the characters, I guess you'd call them, in the stories. But the story itself is not always something I've lived through. So obviously, the song is a pretty, a bit of a heartache song, and everyone's felt heartache, so everyone can write a heartache song. But the song is not a mirror image of my own lived experience, anything like that. But I always feel a bit almost. I imagine when an author writes a book, I've never written a book, but I imagine when an author writes a book, they get pretty invested in the characters and the story, and that's almost how I feel when I write music. So the story of the lyrics in the song, I guess. It's just a story of a bit of heartache, but the story of the album, I think, is kind of fun because me and the drummer and guitarist of Awaken, we all live 2 states apart. And I'm sure you're aware, Australia went pretty deep into the lockdown mode through the last few years. So we couldn't see each other for a few years. We sort of all had a bit of a break from music, not a break as in we're gonna slow down and we're gonna stop, but it was sort of a forced hiatus, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
And we started writing this record completely remotely, and that was pretty interesting. I've done it with a couple of artists, sort of at the start of when those things started to unfold. So we started doing this remotely, and we even tracking. We've only spent, I think, maybe 10 days together since we started doing this record, not including doing the videos. So it's all been a pretty interesting process trying to write it and get it happening. But it's been one for the memories, that's for sure.
Yeah. What's it? I know, and it's been a few years. We get, some info about the song and about the band, whatever, in radio when we're like, hey, this band has a new single coming out. It gets email blasted out to you, and there's always a little bit of info. It's your guys' first, new song in 3 years. And I know you guys have had some tragedy in the band, and again,
yes,
COVID obviously wrecked some
yes.
stuff as well. So when you guys can actually, spend these 10 days together, I mean, what's it like kind of writing together again in person? Does it feel very inspiring, or is it like,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, we've had some experiences that definitely bring you closer together as a band. Losing Connor 5 years ago and doing the Beauty and Tragedy EP, obviously following that. We always talk about how we have great friendships. We're the best of friends regardless of music. Very much family after what we've been through as well. But we always say that it's nice to keep making music, even if we, as we get a little older, in the future, even if we were to ever start slowing down, it's nice to keep making music just because it's something we connect so deeply over and keeps our friendships so alive in a pretty unique way. So yeah, it's very special getting in the same room, especially after those few years where we hadn't seen each other. It was amazing, actually.
That's awesome. And I've interviewed so many bands lately where, whether some of the songs they're writing are about super personal things in their life and the way that people are connecting with these songs. Like, we never thought people would connect so well, or people are going through the same stuff that we kind of are. And I always love hearing that music is kind of the thing that, keeps you guys together. It's the thing that, maybe keeps the glass half full for you guys, or it's a very cathartic process for you guys. So I always love hearing that kind of stuff as well. Which is good. So you mentioned a new album. Do you guys know when you want to release this? Because right now is you guys have been around long enough to where singles games kind of runs things. Some people like doing albums, some like doing EP.
Oh yeah,
singles. So I guess when do you guys have this full length album coming out, or kind of what's the process leading up to it?
Well, this is where I wouldn't want to overshare, but we have next singles right around the corner. So that's just about to come.
Okay.
And there will be a third follow-up single after that one as well.
Okay.
And then the full length will roll out, which I'm very excited for. I've worked on quite a few albums with other artists, and as my role as a producer. But Awaken actually has not done a full length with me in the band makeup, so that's very exciting for me.
Awesome. I know you mentioned that you do a lot of producing. Do you do some of the producing then for Awaken? Is it, or just kind of how
yes,
important to have those skills too? Like, again, there's up and coming bands, or a lot of independent bands are all kind of learning these different skills. So kind of how important is it to have that as a skill as well right now?
Massively. I think more so with writing. This in this genre these days, guitars, bass, and drums and vocals. It's obviously the foundations of every song, but it only goes so far. I feel like it's quite rare in our genre for bands to not have a large amount of production really driving the song as well. Even if you're just talking things like ambience and atmosphere throughout a bigger song like Relic. So yeah, I think it's massive. Awaken I Am is all self-produced, so everything from the ground up is us. To the degree of mastering, so we produced it all in my studio in Melbourne. The guys fly down. This is where we spent those 10 days together, actually. Okay. The guys flew down and we tracked the majority of the instrumentals for the album, and then I just tracked my own vocals and mix and master from there, and that's it. That's the process.
Awesome. And I told you my dog might be interrupting this as well. If you heard some random yelling from him in the background, that's him. And he's now looking at the light behind me and being like, can I knock this thing over and really screw things up today? We'll have both animals to take things out in the interview here today.
Well, As we said, it makes for a fun interview. That's okay.
It does. So I'm glad, Jimmy, you're cool with rolling with everything. Again, Relic is the new single out right now. There's music video out for it. We're getting on your spotlights here in QLZ Monday morning, 8:30, 11:30 at night for you guys. We mentioned, full-length records. This is your first full-length record that's upcoming with Awaken I Am. And I'm asking every band for about the last month and a half here, your favorite full-length or your favorite complete albums of all time, your no-skip albums, the albums you put on from start to finish, and you're not skipping one song out. I love asking this question. Yeah.
That's actually very hard. That's a really hard one. I feel like my answer is going to be very generic, but I think it's my age. When I think I would have been 16 or so. Sempiternal by Bring Me the Horizon came out, and that was a huge one. So that was a turning point for me. I feel like that's what brought in, again, like I was saying, that's what brought in all the production elements to the I guess to the rock scene. And sort of, I know a lot of people were doing it already, but that's what sort of commercialized that sound. Yeah. And that was huge. It's, for whatever reason, it just did it for me. And it's actually quite rare that a full length will do it for me. I'm definitely a full length person. Okay. I love listening to an album start to finish, but it's quite rare that a start to finish album will do it for me. There's been a few in the last few years, but only a few.
Okay. It's fun because everybody's a little bit different. There was somebody I interviewed from Chicago this week, and they're very like Black Keysy, and like their favorite full length records are some of are jazz, like Miles Davis. I'm a massive Seven Dust fan. So like when I asked John Conley years ago doing this question, my last game, he had like Master of Puppets on there and stuff. Then he had Alanis Morissette on there of Jagged Little Pill. So it's always fun to ask because there's always those outliers. There's always those outliers on there where you kind of go, never would have thought that. But this is it's why you ask these kind of questions, because it's interesting.
Yeah. No, I'm not as interesting as those people. My formative music years were very much the main scene days. So all the albums that I loved, that really sort of that formed my taste. Yeah, they're all sort of the cheesy answers now, but that's okay.
That's all right. I asked this morning. I ask a question to our listeners every single morning as well. Do you believe in guilty pleasure music? A lot of them are like, no, you like what you like.
Oh yes.
So
yeah, well, actually, that's a better way to put it. Yeah, you like what you like, but we all have a guilty pleasure. Everyone has a guilty pleasure artist they'll listen to. Absolutely.
All right. What are some of yours then? I guess if you don't mind, if you want to come along with the QLZ audience here.
Oh, mine would be again. It would be all the formative years when I was designing my MySpace page and I was on LimeWire trying to figure out how to download like 3 Days Grace, Evanescence.
Yeah.
All of that era. I feel like I'd almost call it, again, producer all coming in the David Bendeth era of music. All those great sounding albums from like the mid noughties, do they call it? 2005 to like 2015 or so. There were some good albums around then, and yeah, that's up there. Blindside, those bands, yeah.
Yeah. Some of the 3 Days Grace stuff over here, some of that is in the States, they're calling it dad rock. Some of it's becoming dad rock apparently. Which is
I definitely had the dad rock flavor back in the day. Well, it's pretty often, to a van you'll hear some Creed and you'll hear some those bands will come up.
That's awesome. And Jimmy, last question.
But no shame. It's a guilty pleasure, but I'll put it out there.
Exactly, no shame at all. That's why we ask these questions. And last one I had for you, man. Some bands I like to ask too. Their favorite tour stops, where they like to stop on the road. And since you are somewhere I have never, ever visited.
Oh.
When you're on tour and you're going around, like if you've got places in the States, cool. But like first Australia, like where do you guys like stopping when you're on the road in Australia?
This is actually a very hard question. I might have to think for a moment if that's okay. Australia.
No, you're good.
There's a bit of a left of field answer on the last couple of tours we've done. In Australia, you don't really do shows on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Those days are usually off days. So tours in America are jam-packed. Australia is pretty spread out. And my family, we have a tiny little house that my grandfather built in Phillip Island, which is a sort of nice little remote island, maybe 2 hours out of Melbourne.
Okay.
So this is, again, a left of field, maybe a sentimental answer, but there's a few bands we've brought out, and you, as I'm sure you can imagine, you develop really good friendships on tour. The bond is pretty special. And when we have those few off days, the last couple of tours we've done, we would stop in that house in Phillip Island and just spend a few days bonding. And I think that's really nice. You know, there's not really a lounge room there, so you're sort of just stuck having a drink and talking for a few days, and it brings you pretty close. So I think that's pretty special in terms of Australia. And tourist wise, there's some really nice scenery. It's surrounded by beaches and cliffs and things. And yeah, that's an amazing place, which it's sentimental to me as well. I've been going there since I was a baby, really, with my family. So taking bands from the US there with some of my best friends through music is pretty special. Awesome. Tour stops in America, that's hard. Every city in America is a tour. I feel like the best tour stops America have would be things like Buc-ee's and Raising Cane's. Okay. there's the food culture there. The gas station stops we do when you're like about to die of thirst or hunger after a show, they're pretty special. But America's an interesting place. There's quite a few amazing tour stops there. I'd put it all up to the tourist hotspots. You know, like having your first Philly cheesesteak is pretty amazing. So stopping through Philadelphia is cool. The scenery driving into Seattle, we were actually talking about this just last weekend, where you feel like you're driving on a postcard. That's pretty incredible. You guys have good spots.
All right. It's funny because if you interview
Jimmy John's, I'd say Jimmy John's.
Oh, Jimmy John's. Okay. Yeah, I got one right down the road, man. If you guys ever stop in Springfield, there's one right down the road. They just opened up a Raising Cane's here. It's been like a couple of months.
Oh, we'll be there.
People are still going wild for it. I haven't been there yet. It's about 15 minutes on the other side of the city, and I haven't been there yet because every time I go there, there's like 15 cars still. I was like, I'll go there when it's chilling. I don't have to wait 30 minutes for my food. So they're here. Buc-ee's.
Cane's special sauce.
Okay. If you guys ever come over here, I'll look in the store. I'll see if there's some. I'll pick some up for you guys if you ever manage to come through this one. So if they start selling in stores.
You'd be our favorite person in America.
Awesome. Also living in Wisconsin, I get you guys cheese curds, but it's the big thing in Wisconsin.
What, cheese curds?
Yeah. Do you not know
what is a cheese curd?
No. Okay.
No.
So, the Illinois listeners are probably a little annoyed with me right now because I'm diving into some of my Wisconsin love. I mean, I spent about a third of my life in that state. So cheese curds are basically just like a little nugget of cheese. So about like that big to about that big. If they squeak, if you bite them too and they squeak, that means they're very high quality. They're very good. And then a lot of people also like them deep fried too. But you can buy them, in a baggie.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you guys ever tour in Wisconsin, people will tell you guys they'll be more than happy to get you guys beers, brats, and cheese curds. And then if you come here to Springfield, you can enjoy your Raising Cane's if you come here to Springfield. So if you guys hit up the Midwest,
there's something good for you in every state. Exactly. I love it.
Well, that's cool. So Jimmy, again, man, we got Relic on Monday morning, 8:30 on the Artist Spotlight, 11:30 at night for you guys. At least it's on the same day. At least it's on the same day we're getting.
Absolutely. That's the most you can ask for, being as far away as we are.
Yeah. So where can everybody follow you guys on the socials? Again, I know you said you can't overshare about the album. There's more singles on the way, but where can everybody follow you guys' socials, websites, so they can support the band?
Anywhere music is, so anything Spotify, Instagram, where you see some funny posts from us, Facebook, all the usuals, just at Awaken I Am. And if you want to connect with us, send us a message or leave a comment, and we'll be happy to have some fun.
Awesome. Well, Jimmy, dude, I appreciate it, man. I'm glad we can make this work out, and I'm going to let you enjoy the rest of your weekend. So thanks, man.
Thank you very much for having me, man. It's been great to meet you and great to have a chat.